Welcome to the AAC Reports on the Knightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. It is a privilege to be with you once again. Coming up on today's program, we are going to break down the AAC teams in the NCAA basketball tournament. Mike Gillian of collegeinsider.com will join me to take care of that. But there are some other teams in other postseason tournaments from the American that we're going to talk about briefly first before we get to Mike. So in the NIT, 2 teams from the American were placed into that tournament. The Memphis Tigers, they went in as a 3 seed. They defeated San Diego in their first round game, 74-60. But in the second round, they fell victim to the Creighton Blue Jays, 79-67. On the other side of the bracket, Wichita State, they really came on in the month of February. They obviously are not the usual NCAA tournament team they have been, but they have gotten better as the season has gone along. You know, Greg Marshall's too good a coach, and he's getting those guys together. They have advanced to the quarterfinals. They were they were a 6 seed. They defeated Furman 76-70. And then they took care of Clemson 63-55. Next up in the quarterfinals, they will face the Hoosiers of Indiana. And over in the CBI, South Florida, the Bulls, they were winners in the first round, defeating Stony Brook 82-79. And they will get to host another game at Yingling. As we're recording this podcast on a Monday evening, they are playing Monday evening, hosting Utah Valley. Joining us now on the program, he's a former assistant to Jim Larinaga at Bowling Green and George Mason, 10 years as the head coach at Longwood University. He moved them from Division I, eventually into the Big South Conference. Most recently an assistant at FIU and currently an analyst on ESPN platforms. From collegeinsider.com, Mike Gillian joins us to do some breakdown of the AAC teams in the NCAA basketball tournament. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, Jeff, it's fantastic. March Madness, great time of year, and happy to be on with you. Thanks for giving me a chance to talk some hoops.
Oh, it's always great to do this in the month of March. So we're focusing, of course, on the AAC teams, and we'll first start with Temple. They were defeated in the first 4 by a very good Belmont team, and quick an end in the tournament, unfortunately, for Fran Dunphy, the legendary coach who was just done it all. And what can you say about Fran Dunphy?
Well, I happen to have known Fran, or I do know Fran Dunphy personally. I've known him for quite some time. He's a legend in coaching, and there are a group of coaches that one way or another, Jeff, are going to move their way out of the coaching profession at some point in that time in the near future. To go out like Coach Dunphy did in his own way with an NCAA tournament appearance is fantastic, and the best thing about guys like that is nobody ever says anything about them except they were good for the game, and if a lot of the young coaches today can emulate them and do what they did, college basketball will be all the better for it. I don't think there was a lot of surprise at the result of that. I'm sure people look at Temple and they understand the competition they played in the AAC all year, but if you had a chance to watch Belmont at all during the course of the year, you know what a program that they have as well. So unfortunately for Coach Dunphy, he goes out in the first 4 in Dayton, but what a spectacular career, spectacular ride. He has Temple basketball set up for success in the future. Aaron McKee has been there with him for a few years now. It's not a guy who's coming from nowhere. You know, learn the ropes, learn what coaching in college is all about, and his job now is to continue along the successful path that Fran Dunphy has put together for, you know what, Jeff, not just for Temple, but for the Big Five in the city of Philadelphia. He's a legend there. No doubt. Yeah, so Cincinnati was another entrant from the AAC into the big dance, and they suffered a first-round loss to Iowa, and a game they led through quite a bit away, and then Iowa fought back and defeated Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's had a few hiccups getting past the first round in recent years. It's interesting, as another guy, so you go from Fran Dunphy, and he's retiring. Mick Cronin, who's done a fantastic job at Cincinnati and built a program that's competed, been in the top 20 year after year after year, in the top of the AAC now. They're a staple there. And how do they get to the next step? What's the piece to the puzzle. It's so hard. You have 353 teams in Division I. Only 4 teams are going to get to the Final Four. It's not like 16 teams make the Final Four. Only 4 of them. And that formula, not just to get into the NCAA tournament, but to advance, to get past the first round, the second round, gain some momentum, what are the pieces that you need in place? And it seems like for Mick Cronin, they had a little bit of an up and down ride during the course of the season, some bumps along the way, always overcome adversity, always going to be recognized as a physical and defensive team. And playing from ahead, you would expect that they would hold on and win that game, and maybe this would be their year, but not to be. Iowa, explosive offensively. Game's never over when you have a team that can score like they do. And it's just one of those things. Sometimes it's your day for half the game. Sometimes it's your day for 40 minutes. Sometimes it's your day for 39 minutes and 45 seconds, and it doesn't turn out, and you just doesn't go your way at the end. So
yeah, and that's
tough, of course, but just got to keep moving forward now. The season comes to an end, and get ready for what happens in the future.
Well, you just obviously hit a perfect segue to talk about arguably the game of the tournament so far, UCF and Duke. The Knights gave the Blue Devils everything they could handle. They had their opportunities. What an amazing job Coach Johnny Dawkins did. First, getting their first ever victory in the tournament against VCU, where he made it, where UCF went on a great defensive run, holding VCU scoreless for 10 minutes, and then really giving Duke all the fits they wanted.
Well, first of all, and I think there's a couple things with this, Jeff. When you look at UCF, and I don't know what the stats are. When I look around, and before I talk to you, go onto your Twitter page and all that, you see all the trophies and UCF gear. You're probably going to know the numbers. But when you look at B.J. Taylor, Aubrey Dawkins, and Taco Fall, those are the big 3 for the Golden Knights. A year ago, there was a lot expected out of those guys, and they played maybe a total of 40 or 80 minutes together the entire season. Mm-hmm. Now when you go into this year, if those guys go back to the beginning of the year, if they stay healthy, if they're playing together and they find a little groove, everybody knows they have good players, a good team, a good framework, a really good coach, a fantastic coaching staff, the right amount of support. They're going to be good. So as those guys move through the year and they're playing well and they're healthy, they get to experience a few bumps in the road that eventually blend them together too. I'm sure they weren't happy losing that game really, really early to FAU, but you fight through the adversity, you get better. No surprise they ended up beating VCU in the first round of the tournament. And I think that not only is that the game of the tournament so far, the Duke-UCF game, but when it's all said and done, it's probably going to be the game of the tournament overall. Just unfortunately, it didn't go UCF's way, and it happened in the second round instead of later in the tournament. And there's a few things that are very interesting that happened. And I know everybody's talking about the missed lob, and that would have put them ahead, and then the Cam Reddish 3, and there's so many plays, and then the possible hook and hold at the end. But how about this? When you look at the end of the game and the circumstances that occurred, Zion Williamson gets the basket, he misses the free throw, and R.J. Barrett, and Dawkins are right there, and it happens to be a little bit of a long rebound. Maybe Barrett pushes him under just a little bit, but the ball comes out to him. So he gets it and he puts it in. So this is R.J. Barrett makes the game-winning shot. Should we block out and rebound maybe a little better? Then when you go to the play at the other end where the tip-in by Aubrey Dawkins is missed, if you watch closely and back up a little bit, it was R.J. Barrett who's standing right there by the elbow, right at the foul line area, while both guys go running right by him and go for the tip-in and get to the glass that almost win the game for UCF. So it's ironic that a play happens between those two guys at one end that goes one way. The same exact play happens at the other end, and it just misses and goes against you. So fantastic game, fantastic season. Again, only so many teams can advance. It's just a shame that the Golden Knights, that ball didn't roll in instead of roll out off the rim at the end.
What did you make of Johnny Dawkins just basically daring Duke to shoot the three-pointer because they had the worst percentage in college basketball, and he decided just to lay all the eggs in that basket?
Well, there's nobody that can second-guess the strategy going into the game or what happened during the course of the game. Because in these games, you don't go into it thinking, okay, we're going to win by 10 or 12. What do we got to do? You want to make sure you give yourself a chance to be in the game at that last media timeout and then get into the last 2 minutes with a chance to win and then make the small plays to come out on top. So there is no way for anybody to second guess. UCF is in position, great game plan. You have strategy. What are we going to do? Coaching, let's describe it, and let's draw it up and practice it a little bit. Then execution, the players having the trust in the coaches trusting the players, and executing the game plan. It was to perfection, just needed one more thing to go their way in the last 10 to 15 seconds.
Yeah, and obviously people who watch UCF, and if you want the ball in B.J. Taylor's hands to make the big shot, and that came oh so close as well. So the remaining team in the tournament from the AAC, the Houston Cougars, who have had an amazing season. I have them picked in my office pool to go to the Final Four, and really love how they play. What is your assessment of what they have done so far?
They're so exciting. They're so well balanced. They have a lot of the pieces. They don't simply rely on one or two guys. They're not saying, Corey Davis has to get, although he's scoring 17 points a game, he doesn't have to get 25. Armani Brooks, Thoreau, any of those guys. So there's balanced scoring. There's a lot of guys that can put the ball in the basket. They play hard and play well on defense. And don't forget the team. And sometimes it's about the team experience. When you've been there before, you know what it's like. You know what to expect, and that sort of builds the foundation for you to succeed on into the future. I don't think that anybody on the Houston roster is surprised by the fact that they've won a couple games and they're in the Sweet 16. But only 16 teams to go. Kentucky's up next. They have at least, or at worst, whichever way you want to put it, Jeff, a 1 in 16 chance of coming down with the national championship, cutting down the nets in Minneapolis.
And Kelvin Sampson's a guy, he landed there 5 years ago. He had, a little bit of a checkered past from his first go round in the NCAA, went to the NBA for a while. He's came back, and a lot of folks probably thought that was just going to be a little stepping stone job, but look what he's done.
Well, there's no doubt. When you look through the great coaches, Rick Barnes, look at what Rick Barnes has done throughout his career, and he's moved around a couple different places. It's not surprising that Rick Barnes finds himself in the Sweet 16. Kelvin Sampson, while I was the coach at Longwood, we took a team, and we still did not have a league to play in. We played as an independent. We went out and played at Indiana, where Kelvin Sampson was coaching. Eric Gordon was a freshman on that team. Now, that sort of blew up, and it didn't finish the year, and they ended up losing early in the tournament. But at the time we played out there, it was in late November, I believe. They had the best team in the country. There was no doubt about that. So you have somebody who's a really good coach, knows what he's doing, an excellent recruiter, and you hit the nail on the head. You said 5 years. When you give him enough time to put a college program together, it is going to win. And more than likely, it's going to win big, and that's what's proven to be the case.
So we enter the Sweet 16 now. Duke is the overall favorite. Does this game against UCF, has it exposed them in any way, or does it fall under the category, typically a lot of times in the tournament, teams that go to the Final Four will have that one game that they kind of have to squeeze out. Is it more of a case of that, or do they have some things they need to address?
Both things, I think, can be true. And it's always the case where hindsight's 20/20. If they go on and win the national championship, everyone's going to be saying, that game against UCF set the stage. It allowed them to be focused and move forward and all those right things. But if they lose to Virginia Tech, the same people can say, it exposed all their weaknesses. It showed what you could do against them. It becomes really, truly a one-game season, because when you lose, your season comes to a close. Now, they didn't have Zion Williamson, but Virginia Tech didn't have Justin Robinson. And now that rematch comes in the round of 16. So I don't know, and I don't think anybody truly knows the answer until it actually happens. I personally happen to think that the confidence that you gain from winning, no matter how you do it, is fantastic. When you sort of escape like Duke did, and even came back in the last 40 seconds, the Reddish three, nobody's going to talk about that. But what about Cam Reddish's confidence for making that huge three-pointer after the missed lob that guy could get 25 points in the game against Virginia Tech next weekend. So it certainly can. It doesn't hurt because they won and give them a chance to keep playing.
So who do you like in advancing from the 16 to the Elite Eight and possibly the Final Four?
I just think Duke will have too much in this case, and they'll win the rubber match with Virginia Tech. It's really hard to go against Michigan State, and there's some appearances that they're kind of getting it all together, if you want to call it that. LSU, with all the external attention that's been given with Will Wade, Javonte Smart, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? But they still have fantastic players at a lot of positions, much like we talked about with some of these other teams. But I think Michigan State will come out of that particular game right there. I have Gonzaga going all the way to the Final Four. They're just fantastic. And with Gillian Tilly back playing again now, what a matchup with Florida State there. Florida State length, athleticism, maybe a little better shooting than they've had in the past, and some experienced guys. They really handled Murray State quite easily the other day. So Gonzaga and Florida State. With Gonzaga, I like Gonzaga there moving on to the Elite Eight. Texas Tech and Michigan. I got to see Texas Tech in person early in the year in Miami when they were playing in the Hoop Hall Classic at American Airlines Arena. Super impressed with their overall ability. Jarrett Culver, fantastic player. But I think Michigan has a little bit of an advantage there. And I like just how they play. Coach Beeline has always been known for his team's offensive play, and they're playing really good defense. So I like Michigan. So in that side of the bracket, Duke, Michigan State, Gonzaga, and Michigan. And just keep going, Jeff. When you go over to the other side, I think UVA's experience last year losing to UMBC, kind of getting the cobwebs out against Gardner-Webb. They played well in beating Oklahoma. I think they're going to roll through here and beat Oregon in the Sweet 16. I like Tennessee over Purdue. Just physical, tested, have played well all year long. Had their little bump in the road a month or so ago where they had some losses, and they rebounded really well from those losses and are now trending upwards and gaining momentum again. I like North Carolina against Auburn. That's going to be a shootout, as Auburn showed against Kansas. They're willing to let it fly early and often. So the winner, that might be first team to 100 wins. And I just think Kentucky has a little too much firepower, and to get Washington back healthy, they win a squeaker over Houston. So Kentucky with that last team in the Elite Eight.
Okay. So, obviously, March Madness is the headliner. There are other tournaments going on as well with the NIT, the CBI, and, of course, CollegeInsider.com has the CIT, which is a unique format. It's like the old days of the NIT where there is no set bracket, and the CIT is now moving into the second round. Kind of tell us how this works.
Well, first of all, let's stay on your AAC stuff for a second, because you don't want to discount the fact that 7 of the 12 teams in the league made it to postseason play. 2 teams in the NIT, Wichita State and Memphis, and Wichita State's still playing. And Wichita State, if they weren't selected to the NIT, had an opportunity to play in that CIT. So, if that would have happened, that would have been really nice for the tournament, obviously. The CIT is a unique event. Joe Dwyer and Angela Linto have put together a tournament that is unique, has its own challenges. It makes people pay attention because the format's a little different. All the teams play in the first round. Then after the first round is done, depending, and this year there were 26 teams in the field, so there's going to be 3 byes in the second round, right into the quarterfinals. The other 10 teams will play, and they'll fill those remaining quarterfinal slots. So round 1 is over. 3 byes are determined. Round 2 gets started actually yesterday afternoon with Presbyterian winning at Robert Morris, and finish off round 2. Sort of reformatted again for the quarterfinals. Same thing for the semifinals, and then eventually you'll have a champion.
Yeah, and what's really cool in the first round is there's a great tribute that goes on for college coaches where teams are playing for a trophy.
Those trophies are significant in that they recognize, we talked about Fran Dunphy a while ago, and like the John McClendon Classic will have traditional HBCUs playing for the John McClendon Trophy, so you have 5 of those in the first round. The game is played, a trophy is awarded to that team, and when you see it, and experience it, you realize that it becomes important. The Lou Henson Classic, somebody wins, they get the trophy, take a couple pictures, and they get to keep that trophy, put it in their trophy case in round one, and then they move on through the rest of the tournament. So fantastic recognition for coaches that have done a lot for the game, and fantastic for the teams to be able to play for something early in the event.
Well, it certainly is. It certainly is very interesting. I kind of like that there is a little something different to that mix there. And again, Mike Gillian, we do appreciate you taking the time to break it down for us on the AAC report. And again, you can check out Mike on collegeinsider.com, and of course, you're doing work with ESPN platforms and whatnot. Thanks again, Mike, for your time this evening.
Jeff, I really appreciate it. Look forward to visiting with you again in the future. Talk about the AAC, UCF, and anything else. It's college hoops, a lot of fun. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy what's left of the season. And then everybody can get out there and root for the Red Sox. I got to throw my Boston plug in there before we finish.
There you go. Yeah, baseball season upon us, too. Thanks again, Mike.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
And to follow up on Mike's point about the AAC getting 7 teams into postseason play, I found it interesting during Selection Sunday, where they were kind of ranking the power conferences, and they were referring to the Power Six. Not the same Power Six like we want in football, but they were listing, obviously, the Big Five, and then they had the Big East as the other power conference, and I contend it should be the AAC, or at least make it a Power 7, because I think the American is a basketball conference that is very strong from top to bottom. I contend it's better than the Big East. I think the rest of the Big East is riding Villanova's coattails. They've got the national championship. The Wildcats have won a couple to kind of bolster that, but I think the rest of the league's gravy training off of them. And I think the American should be considered more of a power conference if that's kind of the way they're going to refer to things. Another note from the NCAA tournament that I thought was interesting. Danny Hurley, UConn's coach, he obviously was watching his brother Bobby Hurley's Arizona State team when they beat Syracuse in the first 4, and I thought it very interesting. Danny Hurley's on the court. He's kind of like rotating, snapping pictures, and taking it all in. I got a feeling that the UConn Husky players will be getting a look at that photo album as some terms of motivation. And Danny Hurley's going to make UConn a very, very good team, and I think it'll happen sooner than later. And now at this point in the show, it's a segment I like to call my nickel's worth on UCF, because 2 cents is not enough. So, getting back to the game against Duke. Oh, well, actually, let me step back one step further. VCU, it was so wonderful for the Knights to finally get the monkey off the back, get that first ever tournament victory, got that checkbox done. Oh, so glorious. And the way they dominated was tremendous. And I've kind of mentioned, Johnny Dawkins has done an outstanding job growing this program, getting where it is. And I think in these last 2 games, he has proven to be an excellent manager of tactics, because in the VCU game, he decided to go small. He inserted Dayan Griffin in for Colin Smith to kind of help work against the pressure that VCU was giving, and that turned out to be a very, very good move, and got a little more ball handling into the equation. Colin Smith only got 9 minutes in that game, but Dawkins needed his guards. Cesar de Jesus, unfortunately, is a bit of a turnover machine. He did, they probably had to get the guys some rest, but makes me nervous when he's in there because he's just a little too out of control. And then you go at the Duke game. He managed that game extremely well, and I was so glad to see Taco Fall. We've seen him grow over 4 years and become a better player. How awkward he was when he started, because he's only played basketball a short time, and he's continued to grow. And I think in the last 2 months, it's even gone up another notch, and he's been putting out dominating performances. And he was certainly frustrating Duke. He did not let Zion dunk on him, and to see our seniors just contribute and just play so well and lead this team. It's, going to be tough, if Aubrey Dawkins goes pro, and he definitely bolstered his resume with the 32 points yesterday in just a dominating performance. We're going to lose 3 starters, 2 key contributors off the bench, and Chad Brown, Deion Griffin. You lose BJ, you lose Taco. That's going to be tough. Colin Smith will have to take on a bigger role. I think Frank Burtz can be that energy guy because, Chad Brown is kind of the heart and soul. I like the way Burtz hustles and shoots the 3, so maybe he'll be that guy that kind of brings some inspiration to the team. But again, just such an amazing voice. And you can talk about the things Duke got away with down the end. I thought it was classy that our team did not really focus on that. And at the end of the day, they had a chance to win. And way above anything I expected to see. And again, it just I texted a buddy of mine and said, I'm so bleeping proud of this team. And it just makes me burst and beam. Even though it was a disappointing end, the overall body of work equals one great season. And finally, going to talk about the new deal that the AAC and ESPN have come to for television rights, or broadcasting rights, if you will. 12-year deal that'll kick in the 2021 season, extend for 12 years through 2031 and 32. It's going to pay out about $7 million per year per school, which is basically tripling what they have done in the past. This contract will go past current Power 5 TV deals that will go through 2025. So it'll be interesting to see where the landscape changes, because the big caveat in all this is a lot of the coverage is going to go to ESPN Plus. As I mentioned with Andrew and Trace on the Knightline podcast, when they welcomed me to the Knightline Sports Network, thank you guys. I kind of mentioned the first thought was like, they're taking more games off TV. What are they doing? In my screaming old man voice. And, you have to stop and pause and go, okay, streaming is where it's all going. It's going to be great for the non-revenue sports, soccer, baseball, softball, that don't get broadcast a lot. And there's still going to be games on ESPN, The Deuce, ESPNU, ABC. Definitely UCF games. They're going to be on the networks. It's one of those things where they have certainly increased their revenue, which was a big thing, and they have increased their coverage. It is one of those things, though, where it's a little frustrating because certainly we would like to get more. We're not going to get Power 5 money yet. So I know there's expectations, they got to get more money than this. I think by and large, Mike Oresco has done the best he can do in this situation to negotiate a new deal. And it's my blueprint of why Commissioner Oresco is both blessing and curse. The reason we're able to get more money for the AAC is he was a successful television sports executive. He's got great relationships in that industry. He has fostered those, and it's helped the AAC rise to the top of the group of 5. And maybe even gaining more separation. The flip side to that is he's not going to tick off and be aggressive about how unfair the college football playoff is. Because the people that he has those great relationships at ESPN run the playoff. So he's not going to negotiate with great aggression. And therefore, that kind of leaves it up to the Danny Whites of the world to rattle the cage. It shouldn't be his sole responsibility or the responsibility of the rest of the teams in the AAC. So that is where it's a little bit frustrating. But if he doesn't have these great relationships, I don't think the increase of money is what it turned out to be. So there you have it. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffAllen_88. Also, check out my podcast, Jeff Allen Sports Talk, at the appropriate name, JeffAllenSportsTalk.com. And again, it is great to be a part of the Knightline Sports Network. Look forward to doing these podcasts for you to keep you up to date on the league. This has been the AAC Reports. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks for listening.